Speaking Human.
Today on Speaking Human, we laugh, chuckle, and guffaw through a stream of countless brand tweets in an effort to crown the Twitter kings of comedy.
Speaking Human.
Welcome to Speaking Human, where we simplify the world of marketing for humans. I'm Shad Conley, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Patrick Gibber.
Hashtag, are you witty, Shad?
Hashtag, gotta be funny on Twitter. Hashtag, that's the end of the podcast. Have a great day, people.
Yeah, we're talking about being funny on Twitter, and it requires some hashtag humor sometimes, right?
And, reading comedy on Twitter versus talking about something funny on Twitter. Something gets lost in translation there. Anytime people are speaking out hashtags, like you can find a hashtag funny, but when you're talking about it and trying to explain it to somebody else, loses a good percentage of comedy there in the process.
Yeah, I compare it to like when you watch a comedy special and then you're explaining it to someone else and they...
Explaining a joke usually is never good.
Yeah, and you're telling the joke and people are like, yeah, I guess I had to be there.
There's also the moment, as you're going through a Twitter stream, you take it in that organic way where it hits you, and trying to translate that or give that to somebody else outside of the Twitter medium, not great.
Yeah. Well, it's just like anything else. It's timely. Later on, you go back and look at it and you go, it's kind of funny, but not as funny as when you first saw it.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about Twitter as this comedy tool, especially for brands. Why is this a thing? What is it about being funny on Twitter? Why is comedy more effective and beneficial? And why do more people or brands do it on Twitter than the other social networks? What do you think?
Twitter is sort of that quick news feed, so sometimes comedy plays really well there. And punchlines need to be quick in joke. So we've talked about this before. Twitter has a specific amount of characters, which requires people to be more creative, sometimes more witty, sometimes funnier to make their tweet work. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think that's it. I think it's the one-liner social network. You're sitting around watching TV with your buddies making comments, a place for that stream of comments, where you can have a topic and just sort of shoot out your quick little witty comments or your little quips. They can just get shot out there. That's kind of what Twitter is. I don't have any data or evidence to support this. I just think the user base in general is a little more sarcastic, cynical, jokey.
For today's podcast, it is.
Yeah. It's also one of the last social networks that's still mostly text-based. Even the memes, which memes are a huge part of Twitter, there's still usually comical text thrown on these images there. Mm-hmm. So,
well, words help make comedy what it is.
A lot of wordplay.
Yeah, absolutely. Which you could appreciate, being the word master.
That's what they call me.
Hashtag word master. So do you think going the comedic route as a brand on Twitter, should all brands take this approach? Are there too many risks versus the rewards?
I think I had the perception before doing this podcast that all brands are trying to be funny on Twitter. Not necessarily true. It's more true in the fast food, snack food, that kind of realm. It's happening a ton. Outside of that, not as much, There's more of it happening. And like I said, there is a draw to do it. But as far as other brands, if you're a startup or a business and you're looking at it and you're like, this is what we need to be like on Twitter, I would tread carefully there. I think it's incredibly risky. I think despite the number of brands you see doing it, and some doing it well, maybe they make it look easy. It's really easy to not do it well. It's hard to be funny. It's very hard to be funny. I mean, any stand-up comedian will tell you that. They make it look easy when they're doing it well, but it's really hard to do. It's really hard to pull off, I think.
Yeah, and consistently, right? It's easy to have a joke that lands and everybody's like, that is so funny, and it gets shared. But the problem is now people expect it. Whether it's a justifiable expectation, it's, okay, well, all these people started following you because of maybe one funny tweet you had, and now they're like, well, what's going on? Why aren't you funny all the time, right?
Twitter never stops.
It never stops, yeah. So I think there's a lot of risks there. I agree with you there. I think that you have to understand your brand voice and know your boundaries if you're going to take this approach of being funny on Twitter. And if it doesn't fit your brand, then don't do it. like everything else in life, jeans that don't fit, just don't do it.
Don't wear them.
Don't wear them.
I agree. And I think there's a lot of brands who are trying to do that, trying to emulate the success of Wendy's, which has millions of followers and been successful doing this comedy roasting people thing. Most brands, I would say, shouldn't take this approach. You know, obviously, for a healthcare brand to go on Twitter and start roasting people or cracking jokes probably is going to have a much worse look than a fast food brand, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's got to fit your brand voice, right? And it's like we talked about in the past about other social media successes. And then you had a bunch of people trying to reproduce that in other ways, other brands, whatever. Another brand trying to mimic Wendy's, let's say, and their success. They just look like a copycat. It doesn't go over very well in social media. People are going to be like, you just plagiarized that.
People have gotten pretty good, particularly Twitter users, at seeing through the inauthentic. You can put on a doctor's coat, but that doesn't necessarily make you a doctor, right?
Well, maybe. You can be a doctor if you'd like.
I love these clothing analogies. We're just really taking it to the edge.
How about, so if the swimsuit doesn't fit, don't do it. If the contact lenses don't fit, don't wear them. Honestly, maybe you should get that checked out.
Don't put on someone else's underwear and pretend like you're a barber.
Oh, ooh. Now that sounds a lot like Old Spice.
Ah.
Yeah?
Total ridiculousness. It's the trend these days, man. It's so hot.
It's the absurdity that sometimes gets some legs on the Twitterverse.
Sometimes. In a minute, we'll tell you our personal picks for some of the wittiest brands on Twitter. But first, let's get a quick word from our sponsor.
Today's sponsor is Farmers Insurance. Insurance can be confusing, overwhelming, and time-consuming. At Hire Insurance Agency, we remove the guesswork and hassle, helping you protect what matters most. We offer a wide range of auto, home, business, and life insurance policies to help you meet your specific needs. Call 844-543-3463 or visit hireinsurance.com. That's HYRE insurance.com for more information.
Singing his song. All the little birds on Jaybird Street love to hear the robin go tweet, tweet, tweet. Rockin' Robin, tweet, tweet, rockin' Robin, tweet, tweet. Blow rockin' Robin, 'cause we really gonna rock 'em tonight.
Tweet, tweet, tweedledee.
Tweet, tweet, tweedledee.
Tweet, tweet. So each day, millions of tweets are shot into the Twitterverse. 500 million a day, according to a recent Twitter stat, which amounts to about 6,000 tweets a second. That's a lot, right? With that kind of volume, though, brands are consistently searching for ways to stand out in a Twitter stream. One way to get noticed? Obviously, make people laugh. So which brands are the best at being funny on Twitter? We're about to tell you.
Oh.
Oh, yeah.
So, what did you think about the process of going through and trying to determine which brands you think are the funniest on Twitter? Did you find it easy, Patrick?
You know, you touched on this in the beginning of the podcast. Because things lose their funniness in translation, I found it a little bit more difficult because when I went back and I was reading tweets, the brands that I thought were really funny, they have their moments. They're not always funny. And like we were talking about, you know, that consistent humor is really hard to pull off. So it was a little bit more difficult than I thought. But I do think there's a lot of brands having fun on Twitter, and that's what I focused on in my list.
Yeah, I agree. That's a great thing to see. That's one of the fun things about Twitter is a lot of brands are a little looser on there. The thing is, when I was bulk consuming these and digging through and trying to determine, you know, who's funnier, I'm like, getting hit with a lot of this brand comedy at once doesn't necessarily work in bulk. It's better as a single tweet.
Yeah, maybe it's just that one tweet. Let's just confine it to that.
Just enjoy the moment of that single tweet.
Yeah, it's a tweet. tweet, tweet, tweedledee.
So anyway, we're each going to share a couple of brands that we think are pretty good at the Twitter comedy. Let's kick it right off. Patrick, what's your first? Who's one of your brands you think's pretty good at the Twitter comedy?
Well, you mentioned it. Wendy's, because it's obvious. Here's the thing. They paved the way for other brands like them, the fast food brands.
Wendy's has done very well with this. They have like almost 3 million followers. They've gotten a lot of attention with this. The Super Bowl, countless times they've gotten tweets that have gone viral by doing this. They're the roast masters of Twitter.
Yeah.
So they've kind of developed this thing and perfected it, and they're very good at it. I don't know, it's got to almost a saturation point with me because of the other brands doing it and stuff where I'm like, yeah, it's not my favorite form of Twitter comedy, but they've done very well with it, and you got to give them credit for it.
Yeah. It's the roast, right? The roast idea, it can be good comedy, but at the same time, it can become overdone very quickly, depending, too, on the level of where it just becomes overly negative. There are people attracted to that kind of comedy, but I think that gets old very quickly, right?
Yeah, Twitter in general, there's obviously so much negative already on there. You got to be careful. You walk that fine line that you're not becoming part of that black hole that Twitter can become.
Which it can. It can definitely become a black hole.
Undoubtedly.
So I have a couple Wendy's tweets that were kind of funny. So Wendy's responded to a tweet that said, I bet at Wendy's website didn't crash today at Amazon. So that was Amazon's Prime Day, and Amazon's website crashed. And Wendy's responded, when our website breaks, at least you get to play a fun game. And I thought this was fun because they shared a link to their error page on Wendy's site, which allows you to play this Burger Time game.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. And another one was they were responding to a tweet that said, at Wendy's, I have a confession. I asked for a courtesy cup and put soda in it. Obviously a customer, which I think everybody has probably done at some point. And Wendy's replied, does anybody know the number for 911? And then the third one, Avengers Infinity War, which was such a big thing over the summer. If everybody hasn't seen it, spoiler alert, they had that scene. Some of the Avengers turned to dust.
What?
Yep, they
No.
die. They die. I tried to warn you ahead of time. And their tweet was TFW, which is an internet slang acronym that stands for that feel when. Yes, that's a real acronym. So TFW, yo, beef's still frozen. And the image is a Big Mac, and it says, I don't feel so good. And it's the Big Mac blowing to dust. So it was a play on the movie. People obviously had to have seen the movie to get the joke, but I thought it was very timely and relevant and relatable. A little roast on McDonald's at the same time, so it was kind of fun.
Yeah, some good stuff there. The people who run Wendy's know what they're doing.
Yeah. So what's your first brand that's the best at being funny?
My first funny brand of Twitter is Denny's. Denny's has, not as big as Wendy's. They have like 500,000, a little less than 500,000 followers. Nothing to sneeze at, but compared to Wendy's, it's a little smaller. But they do something a little different. They do more absurdist comedy that always kind of harkens back to their food. It's not as harsh or edgy as some of the other brands out there, like your Wendy's, not to keep comparing them, but that's the most popular thing at the moment. It's more that kind of Mitch Hedberg or Stephen Wright style of comedy. So I'll give you a few different examples of some of their recent tweets that I found, gave me a chuckle anyway. So here's one recent one, creating a sort of conversation you would read as if in a script. So, customer, what do you recommend? Waitress, we make a mean spicy sriracha burger. Spicy sriracha burger. Your outfit is horrific. Customer, wow, that was hurtful. I'll take it. Huh?
Yeah, that's good. I like that.
Yeah, pretty funny. This is another one, real recent, nice and fresh. This is some fresh content from Denny's right here. A cheese grater implies the existence of a cheese lesser.
Yeah, I saw that one. I like that.
Deep.
It's very Mitch Hedberg, like you had mentioned, that comedian.
Yeah,
that was
it's that kind of style. And then here's another one. If you stay perfectly still, our chicken strips will eat directly from your hand. It's all kind of on that level, and it's something that works for me. It's a little different type of humor. It may not be laugh out loud hilarious, but I like that.
Yeah, it doesn't have to totally make sense.
Yeah, Twitter's a little bit absurd, right?
Yeah, it is. And the next one is an example, Old Spice. like you said, it's absurd, bizarre, and totally insane in most cases. When you go into it knowing that most of the stuff's not going to make sense, but that's okay, because that's what they've built this brand on the back of now.
Very, very true to their marketing for the past 15 years, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's the stuff that brought Old Spice back from like the old person deodorant cologne era to modern day man going, yeah, I could still be hip and cool and use Old Spice, right? Now, they've only got 200,000 followers, which surprised me because Wendy's...
I was surprised by that too. I thought they'd definitely be in the millions given their high profile.
Yeah, yeah. But, to give an example, their profile bio says muscles, smells, lasers, coupons, GIFs. Or GIFs. The sheer amount of different weird and totally crazy tweet campaigns they've got going on at one time is mind-boggling to me.
Yeah.
Some of their tweets, one of them was, glasses are called glasses because they're made of glass, much like horses are made of horse. It's just weird. They had one where there was an image of a bear, this couple in like a prom photo, and it says, obviously the best thing to wear to prom is the protective embrace of a mother bear. But what is the second best thing? Please let us know. There's one that's see how a mask is the perfect way to let nobody know anything about your face. True romance. And it's got this couple that they're in like a masquerade ball. Every mask she takes off is another mask underneath on his face. Yeah, so that's what makes Old Spice fun. I just wanted to point out they do have this new thing too that they've been promoting on YouTube via Twitter where the viewers can control the actors in the meeting. And while it's not always super funny, the level of insanity, it's on par with their voice. What's happening in the boardroom is a pretty strong representation of the brand and what they go for.
Yeah, they had good stuff. One of the tweets they had that I like was promoting that boardroom thing where they said, doing some A/B testing to get ready for our live boardroom meeting on August 15th.
Yeah.
And they had a poll up where you could vote for A or B.
Yeah. Sometimes it works really well. Other times it's kind of funny.
Yeah. They almost play in volume to me, though. There's just so much of it. You're going to find something funny. I likened it to Will Ferrell, or it's like a Robin Williams or something like that type of comedy. They're just throwing so much at you that eventually something's going to stick.
Exactly. And like Twitter, right? It's a lot of volume. You have to have volume for people to see it. It's a very quick stream of consciousness and then it's gone.
Yeah, I considered this for my second one. I didn't ultimately pick it. It's my first honorable, but in general, I like what they do. For a long time, they've really gone way over the top with this marketing voice, and they just owned it, and Twitter's definitely a part of that.
What's your next one, then?
So for my next one, I actually went with Moon Pie. Now, Moon Pie is one we've actually talked about on the Speaking Human website before. One of their big things, they made some waves on Twitter because they posted a script for a Super Bowl commercial during the Super Bowl that they didn't actually make or air. That was just so weird that it got a lot of attention and kind of went viral. And weirdness is where they work. I mean, beyond Denny's or even Old Spice, they're probably on another level of weird where most of it doesn't even make sense. Or, at least half of it I read. It's funny because I don't get it, or maybe it's ungettable. This is the comedy style they're working in, and they stick to it. Their Super Bowl commercial script, I thought, was a highlight of Super Bowl Twitter at the time, for brands. They just do this wacky ridiculousness. I'll give you some examples. They have a lot of followers, 247,000, which is a lot for a brand of their level. And I don't know how many they got during that Super Bowl time, but they have, tweets that regularly get 5,000 to 10,000 likes or a couple thousand retweets, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah, for that brand. And that's, I think, key to that, right?
Yeah, because I don't know that everybody knows Moon Pie. But that's kind of why they can get away with being so weird on Twitter.
Yeah.
Because they're not super well known. They can just, they have a little bit more license to go weird, and that'll get them attention as opposed to a bigger brand where if they did something like this, it would probably hurt them more than help them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll give you some examples of their styles of tweet. Here's a recent one. Moon Pie said, anyone who's good at Twitter always follows the 4 Ps. Proactiveness, placement, please Linda, please come back.
That's funny.
That's it. And they had something else on there they posted recently. This was back in May, actually, that we have updated our Moon Pie policy. And then they have this document they posted of this updated Moon Pie policy. So it says moon pie, very good taste and delicious. If you eat a moon pie, the way you feel is important to us, and the way you feel is the best. But what about everything else we have to say? Well, that's coming next. Number 1, teens. It is fine to give a moon pie to a teen. Thanks. 2, cryptocurrency. A lot of people ask, what can I buy with all of my cryptocurrency? That is an excellent question. 3, kindness and respect.
Yeah.
If there's one thing we can learn from moon pies, it's that being good is the most important thing you can be, whether you're covered in chocolate or vanilla or even skin. 4, red. Now this one is tricky. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's just, the level of weirdness, as you keep going with these, you get into it and you get lost in it, and you usually laugh because you give up hope of making sense of it. I'll give you one more. If you give a man a moon pie, he will thank you. But if you teach a man to moon pie, I will do everything in my power to find that man and make sure he never moon pies again.
Yeah, it's like a one-liner joke, and you go, that's pretty funny. It puts a smile on your face. Not all of them make you laugh out loud, but...
Yeah, and they don't tweet, super often, but when they do, these are probably the ones that are most likely to give me a real LOL, because they go to such another level of strangeness that it works for me. My sense of humor.
I love that you just said it gives you a real LOL. You actually used the acronym for laughing out loud
which is like nobody even uses anymore because it's like,
yeah.
I'm trying to be hip by using something that nobody even says anymore.
Oh, yeah. The acronyms have gotten out of control, though, so I'm totally fine with you using one that's understandable. Those are, I think, really good ones. I'll point out some of my honorables you actually had on your list, like Moon Pie was an honorable for me, Denny's Diner. I also pinpointed Oreo, which has a lot of followers. I think they do some fun stuff. Pop-Tarts, which is another one of those moon pie type things. Like, really? Arby's sort of competes head-to-head in my book with Wendy's and Burger King. And then Charmin is oddly funny at times. For example, they had a video that they added with their tweet. It said, Charmin gives you the best bang for your buck, pants down. And it was in response to, I guess, Aldi, grocery store chain. My favorite part of this video is the end tagline says, don't use poop emoji when you poop emoji.
Don't use it while using it. The irony.
Yeah. So, I don't know. It's just a lot of fun stuff. Do you have any honorable mentions?
I have a couple. One I thought of was A24, which is a film production company, and they're not necessarily super funny, but they're good at finding funny tweets about their movies and retweeting them. What I would call a master retweeter, which is an art within itself. Another one, absurdist tweeter is Moose Jaw, the outdoor retailer. They're worth a note because not what you expect from an outdoor retailer, I'll say that. And then finally, Totino's, the pizza rolls.
Yeah.
I like theirs just because their handle name is Pete Zarol.
That is funny. I like that.
Which is, it's good. Their tweets, they're okay, but that's probably the funniest thing on there.
And definitely tons of comedy on Twitter. If you are lacking comedy, your Netflix list is running low, go on to Twitter. I think you will be pleasantly surprised for sure, don't you think?
Yeah, and beyond brands, there's a lot of comedians on Twitter. These are real professionals using that as an outlet to give you some comedy on a regular basis. And some brands, as you know, have comedians behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Bringing you some of these comic quips you're seeing. Some brands.
Yeah, it's like an SNL comedy scripting team back there just churning out tweets all day long.
Oh, I thought it was thousands of rats smoking on typewriters.
Oh, is it? Like the Muppets?
Yeah, like those rats in the Muppets Take Manhattan.
Yes. Oh, those rats were great. If they're the ones behind all the comedy on Twitter, that would be it for me. I'd probably die just a happy man. Why did Patrick die? Because he finally found out it's the rats on Twitter that are making comedy.
Well, they're in that rat room right now. They're all like typing away, and this podcast is playing in the background, and they're like, Charlie, they know about us. Shut things down.
Yeah.
We're out of business.
Move to a secure location.
Looks like we're heading to Instagram.
Oh, yeah, Instagram.
And, it's all downhill from there.
Yeah. Well, like I said, it's hard to be consistent on Twitter, so.
It is, but some good examples there of brands that are just most of the time pretty funny, I'd say. Comedy's subjective, obviously.
Yeah, for sure. So, I think we've covered a lot today, guys. I think now it's time to move on. And on that note, let's get our final nugget of human wisdom.
Today's nugget of human wisdom isn't just a single nugget, it's multiple nuggets. And these nuggets come to you pre-cooked from some popular voices from the world of comedy. These are some quotes from famous comedians about what makes comedy. Maybe you can apply them to your brand. Here's the first one. What is comedy? Comedy is the art of making people laugh without making them puke. That one comes from Mr. Steve Martin. The next one comes from Kate McKinnon of Saturday Night Live. Comedy is a tool of togetherness. It's a way of putting your arm around someone, pointing at something, and saying, isn't it funny that we do that? It's a way of reaching out. And the last one comes from the famous comedian Lenny Bruce. The only honest art form is laughter, comedy. You can't fake it. Try to fake 3 laughs in an hour. Ha 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 ha. They'll take you away, man. You can't. And that just points to, that last one, what we're talking about, authenticity. If you're going to bring the comedy, it should be authentic to your brand. Make sure it's built in. Make sure it's there. Don't try to be something you're not, even on Twitter.
Yeah, that's good wisdom for everyone. I mean, in general, and like you said earlier, people see right through if you're trying to force something, if you're trying to be something you're not, people will see it.
Yeah, and they won't go for it. If you can bring that out in a way through your brand that's part of your tone, that's part of who you are, that reflects your product, your marketing, your services, all the better for you. But just make sure that's built into the brand itself.
Yeah, for sure. We covered a lot today in terms of comedy.
And if anyone knows comedy, it's us, right?
We're the comedians of the podcasting world. We like to think so.
And we don't even tell jokes.
Yeah. So that's it for today's episode, everyone. You can find current and past episodes of the podcast on speakinghuman.com. You can also find and listen to the podcast on Google Play, because if you like Google Play, why not Google Play our podcast?
Tweet us your pick for the brand you think is a comedic all-star on Twitter using the hashtag Wittiest Twitter brands. You can find us at speaking_human on Twitter. That's at speaking_human on Twitter. I guarantee you we will not be funny on Twitter. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another episode of Speaking Human. Catch you then, humans.
Speaking human.
We can always try to be funny. We won't be consistently funny. We'll have one-liners.
I mean, I just didn't want to guarantee laughs that I can't deliver. I didn't want people going there and being like, all right, I'm ready to laugh. This isn't funny. It's just a link to the podcast.
We got to have a whole Twitter handle just for our jokes. And then it'll be like one joke every 2 years.
It better be a good one. That's the worst when you try to make a joke and it fails. You have to get a toothpick to clean the tomato out of your Twitter feed.
Yes. Yes. Exactly. Exactly. People be like, these guys are super not funny. I love it.
These guys are awful.